Welcome to the Tough Decisions Network for Entrepreneurs. I'm Dan Handford, and my wife, Dennae, and I interview successful people sharing stories behind tough decisions that they've had to make along their journey as an entrepreneur. On the podcast with us today is Pam Perry, and she's the publisher of Speakers Magazine. Welcome to the podcast, Pam.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Dan and Dennae. I'm excited to be here.
Pam, start us off and tell us just a little bit about your journey to where you are right now as an entrepreneur.
Well, right now, I am a publisher of a magazine, but I didn't always start out that way. I actually started out as a marketing communications professional. Started out with the Detroit Free Press, and I was in the advertising department, and I was a freelance writer. So fast forward, became a business owner after I went into public relations. I was the director of public relations for the Salvation Army. And after I got married, had a daughter, and then I started my own company, Ministry Marketing Solutions, and primarily working with nonprofit and churches and doing all of their PR and marketing. And so from there, I really did a lot of book marketing and a lot of branding for them. And so fast forward, social media came on the scene, and then it just really took off in a whole nother direction. So I have a tendency every 4 or 5 years to reinvent myself based on what's going on in the marketplace.
That's very smart to do, and I'm sure along that journey, you've probably had some tough decisions to face along the way, especially as you continue to pivot things and make those decisions of when to pivot. And so can you start us off by talking about a tough decision that you had to make, and let's start with one that didn't have that good of an outcome. I kind of like to call it the sore thumb tough decision, and maybe some of the lessons that you learned through that tough decision.
Yeah, one of the first tough decisions, I think, was really when I decided that I didn't really know if I wanted to have a business partner or not. And I said, okay, I'm going to, because I wasn't really sure. Sometimes when you're an entrepreneur, you're really not full out sure if you can do it alone. And so you always, sometimes when you're starting out, you're not really sure if you could do it alone. So you take on a partner because you feel you have more confidence. Picking the right partner is very, very important. So at the beginning, I picked the wrong partners. And at the very beginning, I picked some people that weren't the right people for me. And it really hurt my business a lot. I got the partners to help my confidence. And what happened when you pick the wrong partner, it deflates your confidence even worse. So that was one of the main things at the very, very beginning. You have to, quote unquote, vet your partner and really understand who it is that you're getting in business with. It's like a marriage. And so when you have the wrong partner, when you're starting out, it can be like a divorce. And you know how devastating a divorce can be. People say that it can take you out, it can make you bankrupt. And it almost did. It almost did bankrupt me. It bankrupted me emotionally, spiritually, financially. It was just horrible. But I did get back on the saddle and really decide, okay, I'm going to do this thing, and I'm going to reorganize and do everything the way I really envision it. And I do have the confidence to do it on my own. It's almost like the Wizard of Oz with Dorothy. It's like, okay, you really did have it in you all the time, Dorothy. You had it all the time. You had the brains, you had the heart, and you definitely had the courage. So you just have to go out and just follow your own yellow brick road yourself and not always rely on other people to do it with you, no matter if they're your best friend or not.
Do you think that partner or one of these partners maybe, tried to maybe hold you back from what your full potential was?
They just had a different vision. Yes, yeah. They definitely did. They had a different vision. They had a different agenda. And you don't really know what's in someone's heart until you really start dealing with money.
Oh, yes.
So, Pam, we've talked to a lot of entrepreneurs now, and many of them have a story similar to yours. So I'm just curious if you could maybe elaborate a little bit and tell us, how long did it take you to figure out that, you needed to do this on your own? And how did you get back to that place where you had the confidence that you needed to move forward on your own rather than with someone?
It took roughly about a year with just really not without saying, I'm going to give you another chance, give you another chance. So it was like very seasoned. Every 3 months, I would look at it again and say, we're going to talk, we're going to work it out every 3 months. We're going to work, if you keep going back, and I always tell people, you keep going back to the same problem over and over again, every quarter. And then you finally, at the end of every quarter, you're going over is no resolve. Then after a certain point in time, you have to move on because there's no resolve. You're just going over the same thing over and over again. So after that period of time, when you have to dissolve it, you have to go back to the clients and you have to apologize. You have to really explain to them that you no longer have this company, that your integrity is very, very important to you, and that you will not be working in that type of capacity that you previously were, because they lacked integrity and they weren't delivering on things, and that you will make it up. And so basically for that period of time, I had to do a lot of work for those clients for free in order to, quote unquote, make up what was messed up. And that was hard to do. And that was financially wrecking.
So when you are, thinking about possibly starting something new or doing something different now, do you even consider bringing on a partner, or do you try to find a way to do it on your own? And if not, and you are trying to look for a partner or somebody to try to bring on your team, to try to help you from a partnership standpoint, what do you do to vet that person to make sure that you don't get into the same position that you've had in the past?
Right. So I'm not as quick as to bring someone on in my business, like as a partner. It's okay to be a strategic alliance or a joint venture. It's okay to even work with someone on a project, but not to say we're going to be in business together. So that was a mistake that I did. It's like, okay, we are going to sign the papers and we're in business together. So now I more or less we're going to work together on a project. So you will do that first, or you will say, let's work together. I'll hire you as a vendor. That's always a good way to do that. And then as a vendor, you will then pay them upon delivery of their service. So that always works.
That's a great strategy. I've never really heard anybody on the podcast kind of describe it that way, but that is a great way to almost put somebody through the ringer, if you will, or through some of your tests. Is let's start off by you becoming one of my vendors and you do something for me, and let me see how you perform and see how you do things. And before we really try to, get married, if you will.
Yes, it is. It is a very good way, because money makes really a big difference of how people really respond to you. It's a different energy when it's involved, and you really don't know how people will respond to that. And so when money is in the equation, people will talk before, if we're talking right now, Dan and Dennae, it's really good and we're just really happy and we like each other. But then we all put some money on the table, and then we never know what's going to happen. And it's different for everyone. And so everyone's heart is different when it comes to money, and you never know what their values are and how they will react. So that's why I said make them a vendor first and see how they react on that end.
Let's shift a little bit here and talk about a tough decision that you've had to make along your journey that had a really good and positive, or maybe even a better outcome than you had expected, and some of the lessons you learned through that one.
Yeah, it was a rebrand. So roughly, I had a basic PR firm, Ministry Marketing Solutions, and it was a firm that people understood what it meant. But because I was a boutique agency, people knew me from me, Pam Perry PR. So, and then also too, it was also quote unquote before the internet. So I did a release years ago, and I didn't rename the company. I just basically did PamPerryPR.com, and Ministry Marketing Solutions is still the company, but I did PamPerryPR.com and rebranded the company that way. Even though it's still underlying, I'm still working with a lot of nonprofits, ministries, and Christian authors and speakers, but PamPerryPR.com became the company. Why? Because people now understand, because it's been since 2000, people know my name. They're not looking for Ministry Marketing Solutions. At the beginning, they were looking for Ministry Marketing Solutions. Now, when it's a decade or so or more in the game, I become the brand and they're looking for me. So I stepped out from beyond being Ministry Marketing Solutions to being Pam Perry PR. And that was really a big shift, because at that point, I began getting more media attention, more magazines, just more branding on what I did alone in terms of in the marketplace. And really, I was a trailblazer in terms of doing ministry marketing. Not a lot of people wanted to do it, and a lot of people weren't doing it. So that was one of the main things that I did. That was something that was different, because it was like, well, did you sell out to Ministry Marketing Solutions? Did you? No. It's still part of Ministry Marketing Solutions. The tagline for that is helping people market the message, which is what I do. But Pam Perry PR is that we help you shine online like a superstar. So it's a little bit different. And again, it goes with different market changes. Ministry Marketing Solutions was more or less for ministries. Now we help you shine online like a superstar, because personal branding is more important today than it was 20 years ago.
Pam, talk to us a little bit about the strategies that you use whenever you're facing a tough decision.
I go to a coach. So a lot of times, I don't have quote unquote business partners. And Dan was kind of asking me, what are some of the things like, what do you do? So I don't necessarily have business partners, because if you have a business partner or whatever, you can kind of talk it over with them. But I do have business coaches. So I have business coaches that I talk to on a regular basis every week. And we hash through different problems or issues, and they help me see blind sides. They know a little bit of my history, and they also will tell me that I'm repeating maybe a mistake that I did before, or it's a coach. It's someone who listens, someone who knows your history, and someone who knows the areas where you are probably not familiar with. And so that's one of the main things. And I've had many coaches. I had my first coach actually probably in 2004. I went into business in 2000. And so my first business coach I actually paid was 2004. I have a different coach now, but I've always had a business coach, and they seem to help. And you get as much out of a coach as you allow them to speak into your life, and as much as you share. And so now the coach that I have, I share everything. I share a lot. And so they are able to help me a lot. And that's really the main thing of really having a good coach. The other thing is I read and I go to conferences. I love conferences. So I will really actually show up at a conference, not just Google, but actually just show up in a conference, because you never know who you're going to run into.
All right, we're going to take a quick break and hear from one of our show sponsors. When we come back, we're going to talk to Pam about some of her favorites as it relates to her life as an entrepreneur.
Have you ever thought about investing in real estate, but find yourself so busy that you don't have time for it? Do you have FOMO, which is the fear of missing out? At HanfordCapital.com, we help investors with passive real estate investments that project better returns than traditional investment vehicles such as the stock market. If you'd like to find out more about our passive real estate investments, visit HanfordCapital.com. That's HANDFORD Capital.com. We will jump on a call with you to discuss your investment goals and to see if our investments are a good fit for you. This advertisement is not to be construed as an offer or recommendation to buy or sell a security. Visit HanfordCapital.com. All right, we are back on the podcast today with Pam Perry. And I want you to start us off, Pam, on this quick series of quick questions and answers called the Trifecta series. And start us off by telling us about what your most favorite technology is that you use in business that helps make your life easier.
Ooh, I would say probably G Suite. Everything G Suite, Google, so many things. This is for branding purposes, and maybe that's why. The Google suite of emails. So for instance, if someone hands me their business card and it says such and such at Yahoo, whatever, I know that they're not serious. So they need their own branded email, and it needs to be through Gmail, and it needs to be through Google. And so all the Google suites where it's using Google Hangout, whether it is using YouTube, all of the Google products are Google Drive, Google Docs. I couldn't live without Google. So those are some of the things that I would say that the business part of that, of actually paying for that. And it's only something like $5 a month to get the G Suite of your own branded email through Gmail. And so I would say that is really, really the main thing that I really, really love and can't do without. I'm an iPhone girl, so I have a lot of apps on my iPhone. I love iPhones. I mean, some people are really the Android. So if you were to go through like some of my favorite apps, I have them. I have a lot of them, but it's hard to say which apps are my favorite. So it just depends on the day and what I'm trying to do.
What is a favorite quote that you've read or heard that's helped you as an entrepreneur?
Ooh, this is the one that I always use. And I actually have it on my bulletin board. It says, whatever you vividly imagine, ardently desire, sincerely believe, and enthusiastically act upon must inevitably come to pass. And the key word upon that is act upon, because you can always dream and you always wish. But if you don't act, it doesn't come true. So acting, I'm an activator. That's one of the things, if you do those tests or whatever, I'm an activator. So I really am a person that likes to get things done. It may not be perfect, but it will be done. And so I will make sure that if you act upon it, it must inevitably come to pass.
And what is a favorite book that you've read and would recommend to our listeners?
I would say I like a lot of Christian books, and I like a lot of business books. And I would say this book by TD Jakes called Soar. And it's a combination between both. TD Jakes is a former client of mine. And so this book talks about, from a biblical standpoint, of how to soar in terms of entrepreneurship. And it talks about how to get beyond dreaming to really talk about business plans, marketing, branding. And you would not think that maybe a pastor would talk about those things, but he does. And so I really like the book. It's called Soar. It's a New York Times bestseller too.
And what's the next thing for you right now on your vision or dream board?
Right now, I've got a vacation. I'm planning a trip to Jamaica at the end of this month. So it was on the board in January. I just had a beach on there. So that was on there as well. But the other thing I have on there, very big deals. So I'm working on some very big deals for 2019. And so one of the things that I want to do is just really work on some big strategic plans. And I want to do a big summit for those that are speakers, obviously, because that's Speakers Magazine. So a big summit for speakers. So that's what I'm working on right now.
Do you have a podcast yourself?
I am actually launching a podcast. I have a small one that I do on Anchor that it's basically like I guess you say a pocket podcast, on the go podcast, but I'm going to be launching a regular podcast, which actually will be a video podcast. So speakers want to be seen and heard. So that was always the issue there, because they want to be seen and heard. So I'm launching that soon.
I was going to say, because I will definitely tune into your podcast. I've really enjoyed this interview and look forward to continuing to follow you. Because if you didn't have a podcast, I would tell you and encourage you to do a podcast. So
thank you.
That's very good. How can the listeners reach out to you, Pam, if they want to follow you more, get to know you a little bit more?
I'm all over the place, but the main place to really catch me is at pamperrypr.com. And I always tell all my authors and speakers to buy your domain name and make sure that you buy that there. And then when you go to pamperrypr.com, you can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. It's everything is there. But that's your home, and that's where they can find me. But I am on all the other social medias, but pamperrypr.com is where they can find me. And if they go there too, they can get my free audio lessons on PR as well.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Pam, for taking some time out of your schedule to be with us today. I hope you have a wonderful trip to Jamaica.
Yeah, man.
I love Jamaica. So it's a very fun place, and all the Caribbean islands I love.
Yeah.
But thank you so much. We look forward to having you on a future episode as you continue to grow as an entrepreneur.
All right. Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Dennae. This has been really good. God bless you. Thank you.
You too. Thank you for listening to the Tough Decisions Network. Be sure to visit toughdecisions.net to gain access to show notes for this episode and to join our free weekly entrepreneur email, where we will send you news about the latest technology for your business, inspiring quotes, and the latest books for entrepreneurs. That's toughdecisions.net.